I understand that Donna Gilmore was hoping to come up. Donna Gilmore is in San Clemente, and she runs a website called sanonofresafety.org. Please write that down, and that's the place to go for all the information on the San Onofre issues. We have a pretty wonderful piece of news. The Mitsubishi report was finally released yesterday, of course, on Friday afternoon after the news media went home. And this is a report that everybody's been waiting for. It was leaked to the Friends of the Earth by a whistleblower. And it's the Mitsubishi report on the root cause of the problems at San Onofre. And read the LA Times articles or the Reuters articles. They're really, really wonderful quotes. And my favorite piece was, as for the code error, the report said Mitsubishi had used an inappropriate definition of the gap between tubes in its calculations. In other words, they couldn't count, how close the tubes are together, because that's what was happening, is the tubes were rubbing against each other and against the support plates. And of course, Edison's response was, "Oh, we didn't know." Basically, this report says that Edison and Mitsubishi both knew before the steam generators were even installed that they had a problem. In fact, it goes back to 2005, and in fact, it actually goes back earlier than that, because there is another document leaked by whistleblowers, thank God for whistleblowers, to Arnie Gunderson, and this is the specifications that Edison put out for the job for Mitsubishi to do, and they basically said, whatever you do, you have to do it within this 5059 parameters, and 5059 means that it does not need a license amendment review, which of course it should have had. This is what Friends of the Earth has been fighting for, that should have had a license amendment review, and certainly should have one now before they even talk about restarting it. From the report, this is a quote from the report, they actually considered design changes back in 2005. That's the discussion in the report. The anti-vibration bar, this is, because the vibration of the tubes inside the steam generators is what caused the problem, and that was caused in turn by the steam being hotter and drier than it was supposed to be. But each of the considered changes had unacceptable consequences, and the anti-vibration bar design team agreed not to implement them. Among the difficulties associated with, this is important to note, the only one that they mention is, among the difficulties associated with the potential changes was the possibility that making them could impede the ability to justify the replacement steam generator design under the provisions of 10 CFR 5059. So this is a bombshell. And okay, 5059 is a piece of the NRC code and Nuclear Regulatory Commission code, and it says if you have a like-for-like replacement, in other words, if you're not going to do anything different, if you're going to put steam generators in that are basically the same as what you had before, that's fine. We're not going to do a license amendment review, which would, among other things, require an evidentiary hearing and a lot closer look at it. And actually, Donna and I were talking this morning. We think that they have laid the groundwork for this for several years before the steam generator case at the CPUC, which was in 2004 and 05, because they actually applied for an uprate. In other words, they applied for to be able to run the nuke hotter and faster back in 2001, and that was when they still had the old steam generators, and when they were getting ready to apply for these new steam generators, they already probably knew that they had a problem. And Edison owns a piece of Palo Verde nuke in Arizona, and they were actually going through a license amendment review with the Palo Verde steam generator replacement. So they knew very much what the review consisted of, and they just didn't want to bother then. And they had to stuff these steam generators into the same space, so they couldn't make them any bigger, but they wanted to run it faster so they could make more money. And I mean, it's a pretty amazing story. But Steve wanted me to keep it to 10 minutes, so I have 5 left. And I wanted to just let you guys know what is going on at the CPUC. I am not working for the CPUC. I'm an intervener, and that's not just me. My organization is called Women's Energy Matters, and I've actually trained in about 8, 9 other parties to be in CPUC cases, and I also trained a bunch of people to work with me, and I have a team right now that is working in this proceeding and in other proceedings, but I am really interested in having more people that can help to crunch some of these documents. We have received the original 2003 specifications report. Obviously now we have the Mitsubishi report. And then there's a bunch of other things that I'm very interested in doing. California reactors obviously have a big problem with earthquakes, but the emergency response planning for the nuclear power plants in California, like the rest of the country, do not consider the effect of earthquakes in emergency planning at all. And that is kind of an amazing oversight. And we have a wonderful leaked hearing that I got from the Abalone Clearinghouse, Roger Heride, that is kind of hysterical. You know, I think these things are funny, but the old chair of the NRC at the time in 1984. This is actually emergency response closed hearings. In other words, secret hearings that were held on Diablo Canyon, and they referred to the San Onofre case, which had gone through a little bit earlier, and they said, well, here's why we are not going to consider earthquakes in emergency planning. And the chair goes, well, earthquakes are no worse than fog or whatever. And there are other statements in there that absolutely you just cannot believe. This is the NRC talking. One of the things that I really want people to put out there as a goal for us to be working towards is to break the preemption for safety that the Nuclear Regulatory Commission has. California has a bunch of safety issues that we can kind of nibble around to the edges, but we are not allowed to actually address the safety of the operations of nuclear power plants. However, one thing that we can do is talk about these emergency response documents that Edison is producing. And I've put in a bunch of data requests that are, you know, coming back with some pretty juicy stuff. You know, amongst them, you know, here's all the information that they're giving to schools. What is their education program in the schools like? Well, they have lots of nice, you know, field trips for the kids to come in and, you know, meet the engineers, and, you know, and then there's a philanthropy section, which is in addition to the overall company philanthropy. This is just particularly the nuclear philanthropy that goes out into every chamber of commerce, all sorts of community organizations. And in this proceeding, the investigation of San Onofre, we have a number of minority representative groups, Asian Americans and Hispanics, and they are looking for money to distribute this literature that Edison is putting out. So that is actually a part of the scope of the case is the emergency response education information. So basically that gives us an opening to take on what I call nuke speak. There was a great book called Nuke Speak, which talks about the propaganda campaigns for nuclear energy and weapons. And so we could certainly go through these materials and look at the truthfulness of them and say, I mean, it's all about the money at the CPUC. It's like, should Edison get the money to produce this? Should they get the money to restart the plant? Should all the money be refunded? This is the basics of the case. And we are working on that, and Roger has put together an incredible slideshow on emergency response, which I just got a peek preview of the other day, which is just totally amazing. And then, as Steve mentioned, the issue that I focus on in all of my cases at the CPUC are the energy efficiency opportunities and the renewable energy. You know, we have wonderful testimony from the last couple of years for the procurement cases at the CPUC, and you might not know that the utilities currently do not count the solar power that you paid for to put on your roof. It's not counted as part of the system. The energy efficiency that they are spending $1 billion a year to help you install, that is not counted in their system. And why? We don't know where it is. That's what PG&E said. We, could be anywhere in the territory. So how do we know? And I'm like, well, wait a minute. Supermarkets are counting heads of lettuce. You should be able to count, the the improvements that you've made on energy efficiency, and you certainly should be able to count the solar power that you, after all, have to hook up on the roof. So very grudgingly, the decision in the procurement case this just last month, or 2 months, last month, early February, said that they are the independent system operator, the grid operator, and the utility are going to have to get together and figure out how to use this stuff. And I'm saying, why should we leave it to ISO and Edison, the two parties in the case who least wanted to use this? Why not the rest of us get involved? Because there were a lot of clean energy parties in the case. And so I've actually had a proposal into the CPUC ever since May of 2011, right after Fukushima. I said, look, California nukes could go down at any moment, God forbid, but with an accident. And what California needs to do more than anything is to figure out a clean replacement resources for these nukes. And so it's taken a couple years now, but at least grumpy as they are looking at it. So I would love it if people would like to call me and get involved, or go on. You can go on and look at our site. It hasn't been updated like Donna's had, but womensenergymatters.org. You can reach me through that website. And I look forward to speaking with all of you, and I'm so grateful that you're all here today.